Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have To Catch a Smuggler. This is a National Geographic reality docu-series. It's 4 seasons long. It's about 45 episodes or so. Each of them run about 45 minutes long each. This came out in 2020 to 2022, which, man, that's a it's a period of time in which not a lot of people were traveling. So, I don't know if this focuses on anything other than the airports, the smuggling that usually happens that way, either narcotics or people, or in some cases both. This first episode, which I only watched one episode, uh, focuses on three different locations: Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. Three very popular means of smuggling, locations where people smuggle a lot of things through. Miami is the first place. People tend to travel through Miami from Colombia, where cocaine is pretty much a major commodity, and a major export, let's just say. And they find a guy in who just they knew that somebody's coming through that might be suspicious, and they start asking questions and trying to identify people. There's a whole customs process, but sometimes they go through a process like a pre-check, in a sense, once they've disembarked the plane. They would zero in on this one guy, and he starts giving off some signals, some signs. And they talk about the different things that they look for in people who might be exhibiting signs of smuggling narcotics in that one very special way that we all know that people seem to love to do. Well, maybe not love, but it's the last place anybody wants to check, let's just say. And yeah, they check him out. The second story takes place in Los Angeles, and that is, of course, right here, is a very big entryway for people to smuggle themselves across the border. And then it's not just, people are like, oh, the Mexicans, oh, they're going to come across the border. And, no. In this case, they discover at least two different people they interview that have come across, come into the United States, into Los Angeles, on a plane, and through what they assume is a work visa program, or they're visiting their boyfriend, a guy they met on the internet, or, there are certain rules, and there are certain specific things that people have to abide by in order to be allowed into the country for any period of time, even if it is a completely legitimate reason. You're there for work, or you're for a meeting, or a big event. There's a lot of people who come into the U.S. From overseas for conferences and things like that. So yeah, it's international business happens all the time. If you're there to visit your boyfriend and you may not necessarily know his name, or you are there to just sort of work, but you haven't worked in a year, maybe one of his stories might not check out. And then they go to New York City, where people often also smuggle in loads of drugs. In this case, at this point, New York City, it does not have marijuana legal. Here in LA, very legal. Legal through certain means. It's not, not necessarily, it's not a good idea still to just smuggle this stuff in. Well, just grow it here, Either way, in New York City, though, they have a group of people that are, with Homeland Security and everything else, they inspect all sorts of international shipments, usually from places that are common exporters of such things. Whether it's cocaine or ecstasy or even marijuana. They start digging through the packages, and sometimes when they find the package is full of, say, ecstasy, they actually pack it back up and have it delivered to its destination where it's supposed to show up. And this is through the mail. This is not like somebody carrying it in their butt, or hey, I've just got a bag full of ecstasy. No, there's none of that. It's people literally mailing it from another country. They inspect all the packages, and they find the dogs, Argo in this case, finds drugs. They pack it back up and drop it on their doorstep, along with loads of police waiting for them to pick up the package. Do they capture their man or woman? Well, you have to watch the episode to find out. So there's 3 different aspects of smuggling, whether it's through the mail, through themselves, or through other, sometimes smuggling themselves. Yeah. But it's usually drugs. And that's just the first episode. So with 44 more episodes to go, over 4 seasons, I imagine they visit different airports, different means, different stories. This is sort of like a less seedy Cops to me. It's a reality show, but it's it's pretty edited, and it's so it's Cops, but it shows the procedures of the police. It follows Homeland Security. It follows their processes. Although I think if I was a smuggler, I'd kind of watch this show and go, well, I got to make sure I don't hide it in frozen fish this time, or a backpack with sealed baggies. I don't know. There's so many different ways. You can learn a lot about how people smuggle things and how not to do it. And how not to get caught. They don't find everything every time, but it is their goal. There's a team at each of these airports who work to do their best, humans and dogs, to do their best to sniff out any type of narcotic that could be smuggled. And they're pretty good at it. So yeah, I'm not a big reality TV show fan. I'm not a big this kind of thing. But this was pretty interesting to me. This did make a whole lot of sense. It was fairly engaging. Yes, there's the dramatic music and the build up to the commercial break, and then they rehash the thing that they just showed you at the end of the commercial break, and they go, oh, let's catch up and show that same footage again to the big culmination of, did they capture the bad guy? And I also make it very clear that a lot of people who do these things aren't necessarily bad guys, especially the people who are just trying to come into the U.S. to find a new life. Even if it's just I met a guy on the internet and now I'm gonna live with him. And maybe I'll just overstay my welcome. Nobody looks twice at the pretty white blonde girls as much as they do people with brown skin, which people tend to be very sensitive about that. But the pretty blonde girls, they seem to get away with it all the time. Yeah. That's not a problem at all. So yeah, you never know exactly how it's going to go. And like I said, the guy who's interviewing these people, he says, they're not necessarily bad people. They have no ill intent, but in a situation where one of them is a pretty prolific drug user, as they found out when they searched his phone. He denied ever doing drugs, but he talks about drugs all the time with his friends, doing drugs of all types. And it's like, okay, it's a kind of a specious argument, but yeah, a person who loves to do drugs, who's come into this country illegally, could harm somebody else if they're out of their, not in control, and that poses a danger. Why didn't they stop that person who could have potentially been a danger when they could have? Well, that's the reason why they do it. The guy was not necessarily a bad guy, but could be problems. If you're going to come in here legally, be an American and screw up people's lives with your drug abuse, I guess. So, and again, there's a lot of people who are just desperate when it comes to money. It comes down to freedom, money, and money in many cases. So wherever they're coming from, not that America. Yeah, I can't really say. America, it doesn't really pay well for the most part. But, yeah, I think we pay better probably than most countries when it comes to certain things. Anyway, I say it's worth checking out if this kind of thing interests you. This is very much a real type of thing. I don't know if they really jack up the storylines to make them more interesting, but I can't imagine this. I can imagine maybe a season of this, maybe 10 episodes or so at 45. How many different situations are you going to get out of this? I don't know. You might have to watch it to find out, but I don't think I'm going to be that person. I'm not super into this. I think if I suddenly watched everything else, maybe I'd check this out and mix it in with some other stuff that I watched. Cut it with something like Spider-Man or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Check it out if you're into this kind of reality type of TV from National Geographic. Tomorrow's episode, it's Wednesday, and you know what we got? We got something I've already picked out for us because I'm going to watch it anyway at midnight. Marvel's Secret Invasion. Nick Fury is back. He's on Earth. And yeah, things aren't exactly going so well. You'll want to, I'm going to warn you this right now, and I'll say this tomorrow as well, but you're going to want to make sure you'll have watched the first Captain Marvel film as a prelude to this. If you haven't watched that yet, a lot of the stuff with the Skrulls may not make sense. And what is a Skrull if you don't know? Well, Captain Marvel will tell you that. And, well, you can also read the comics. But there's a Secret Invasion comic series event kind of thing that came out a number of years ago, but it is not necessarily exactly the same story. So I'm looking forward to all the different mysteries that could unfold. Who is Skrulls or shapeshifters? They could be anybody. And that makes Nick not so happy. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Tomorrow, Marvel's Secret Invasion on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.